This week on the IoT Podcast.
What we are realizing about security is there are a lot of band-aid type solutions out there. They see the problem and they quickly come up with a solution that only solves that problem superficially. We're trying to not do incremental things, but provide a solution that solves things exponentially. We're trying to provide a full stack, connect all these essential elements together to provide an end-to-end security that solves everybody on the supply chain without the need to trust other people on the supply chain.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Security is often seen as an afterthought or a gold-plating exercise. And unfortunately, that's where attacks can happen, right?
Security is a chain, right? And you can do everything perfect in some part of it, but if somewhere else someone didn't do a good job, the whole chain will break. And that's the problem. And this is being magnified in the IoT ecosystem. And that makes having IoT security, building IoT security very, very hard. Unless the whole mindset shifts to the point that, okay, if we fundamentally from ground up follow specific things and asks for specific things, then this is solvable, this is achievable.
The level of security that can be involved with quantum and with acts like this, from a high level point of view, what are the advantages and what are you kind of working towards with some of your customers, and how can we integrate quantum, and are we there yet? Welcome back to the IoT Podcast. I'm your host, Tom White. Every week we are joined by the biggest names in IoT to unravel the trends, misconceptions and predictions for the Internet of Things. Before we get into today's episode, don't forget to subscribe on whichever platform you're watching or listening on, and turn on that notification bell so you're never out of the loop.
I'm really excited for today's episode where I sit down with Crypto Quantique's founder and CEO, Shahram Mossayebi, securing the Internet of Things with quantum-powered, unhackable identities. Wow, that's a mouthful. In this episode, we take a look at the implications of the EU Cyber Resilience Act, set to launch this quarter, and actually what that means for companies operating around the EU. We're also going to be discussing the challenges of selling IoT security, the paradigm shift that needs to happen towards security consciousness, and the advantages of post-quantum cryptography, plus a whole lot more. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the IoT Podcast. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Tom. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Well, thank you for coming on to the show. I think possibly the coolest name of a business that I've heard in quite some time, Crypto Quantique. It's just great. It sounds great just to say it, actually.
That's the French side of it.
Yeah,
makes it sexy.
Absolutely. In fact, I mean, for our French listeners, I remember many years ago, I used to have a T-shirt that said "Tout sont mieux français," and it means everything sounds better in French.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think it really does. So a little bit of an introduction to yourself, Shahram, and the business, and how you came up with that wonderful name as well, please.
Absolutely. Well, I'm Shahram Mossayebi, CEO, co-founder of Crypto Quantique. My background is in physics and then moving to cybersecurity and cryptography. But knowing physics and cryptography kind of led me to study quantum cryptography for my PhD, which was an interesting combination of both. After finishing PhD, I kind of realized this big opportunity and big problem to solve around security of connected devices, or the IoT. So if you guys, the IoT savvy people remember the Mirai attack back in 2016 and Jeep getting hacked a couple of times. So for a period of time, IoT security problems were on top of the news in FD and like those big outlets, news outlets out there, which drew my attention. It was a big problem to solve given the vast number of IoT devices in the world and how they are getting embedded to our lives. So yeah, it was interesting. And for me, the angle was how one could bring quantum technologies, cryptography to address those big cybersecurity problems in a kind of a hybrid model. And as for the name, I wanted kind of both the same thing in the name, and crypto. For your audience, is short for cryptography, and this is how people in academia call cryptography. Now it's been hijacked by cryptocurrency people, etc. But so crypto refers to cryptography, and the quantique side of it was a nice name of the French way of saying quantum, which kind of quantum security or other bits and elements that we're doing in the company is going to refer to that. So yeah, one day I was sitting in Cafe Nero thinking about what I'm going to do with my life and how I can utilize my knowledge to do something good in the world. And I thought about, let's combine these things together and solve some big problems. And the name just popped to my head, Crypto Quantique.
Excellent. It's a great name. And sometimes things happen just for that reason. It feels quite natural, actually. In fact, the name of my business came to me when I was driving down a motorway, and it just popped into my head, and it just felt so perfect at that time. And I often feel it's your gut, isn't it? It's your gut telling you beyond your brain trying to convince you elsewhere that maybe you need to change.
Indeed.
It. So yeah,
absolutely.
So wonderful name. So just thank you for the overview. So just to contextualize this a little bit, then. So I think it's entirely relevant and poignant that businesses like yours are working in the space that you do. As of the time of recording today, recent press in the UK, Greggs, the retailer, right? Known for selling its sandwiches and so on and so forth. They shut all of their stores yesterday, right? Because of an IT attack, right? Every single store in the country, hundreds, if not thousands, I don't know the name, shut because of an IT attack, right? Unspecified IT attack. And actually, it only seems front of mind to the public when something like this happens. You're referencing something that happened in 2016, which a lot of people know in the community. And I think sometimes that's the issue, isn't it? It's that unless it's front of mind, unless we have these attacks or something really serious happens, that people tend to kind of sweep it under the carpet or just get on with their lives, right? But it's thanks to some of the work that you're doing in businesses within the community that some of these attacks are becoming less prevalent, actually. So it would be great to get into that today and learn a bit more about that. And certainly the quantum side of things, which for me just blows my mind. I mean, I came from an embedded background and a little bit about cryptography and elliptic curves, etc. But don't ask me to quote too much on it. But I think the whole quantum aspect is really, really fascinating. So in terms of the business, then, roughly what sort of size are you, and what's the kind of mission statement? What do you hope to achieve within the company?
Yes. Well, we are 30 people now. All engineers are in London, based in the UK. But commercially, we are already expanded in APAC. So we have an office in Taiwan. And funny enough, I am already right now talking to you from Taipei. So it's almost 6:15 p.m. here. And we have some activities in Israel, some activities in commercial activities in North America as well. And this year and next year, we're hoping to expand these activities globally as what we do. But the core engineering are in the UK. 30 people, almost a third of the companies are PhDs in variety of fields, from quantum physics to cryptography to software engineering, IC engineering, etc. We have a really nice kind of intersection of different engineering fields, which makes the team a very diverse and versatile. So if you're around the office and you're hanging out with people, suddenly you hear really, really interesting conversations going on, because people coming from a very different background but talking about the same topic, and their angles of how they see the problem can be tackled and solved. So it makes it very, very exciting. We have been around for 7 years as a company. We are VC backed. Our big VCs are big lead VCs are BGF, British Growth Fund in the UK, and Parkwalk Advisors, who are supporting kind of deep tech startups in the UK. And yeah, on the mission side, the goal is the vision of the company is to secure the connected world with zero trust. So what we are realizing about security is there are a lot of band-aid type solutions out there that they see they see the problem and they quickly come up with a solution that only solves that problem superficially, and they just move on. We're trying to not do incremental things, but provide a solution that solves things exponentially, basically. So we want to be fundamental and solve things properly rather than being a band-aid. So that's a big differentiator. Because of that, we look at this IoT security problem very, very differently from a lot of other people. And I guess we were one of the early people seven years ago who realized you cannot solve IoT security without starting the security from the hardware side, then bridge it to the software side, the embedded side, software side, then to the cloud. So it's not just, we're just a software company or just a hardware company. So we're trying to provide the full stack and connect all these essential elements together to provide an end-to-end security that solves everybody on the supply chain without the need to trust other people on the supply chain or be in kind of be tied to them that they can't do anything else and they need to always abide with that vendors or that suppliers because they're using a specific service from them. We're trying to give them that freedom and control over how they want to achieve security, but do it properly that protects them for the future. So that's what we're trying to achieve.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Security is often seen as an afterthought or a gold-plating exercise, and unfortunately, that's where attacks can happen, right? We did a podcast recently with Codasip, and they're talking about memory flow attacks.
Oh, absolutely,
and so on. But if you go from the hardware upwards and have a security first, zero trust mindset, this is where it can limit some of these aspects. But it's a mindset shift, I think, actually, Shahram, isn't it? For
Indeed, yes.
A lot of manufacturers.
Everybody.
Yeah, everybody.
I mean, this is a famous saying: security is a chain, right? And you can do everything perfect in some part of it, but if somewhere else someone didn't do a good job, the whole chain will break, and that's the problem. And this is being magnified in the IoT ecosystem because it's not just I build this device and I'm using it my own. Is you're buying the MCU from somebody else builds the board for you, somebody else writes the software and the firmware, someone else does the provisioning to your device, someone else package everything for you, someone else do the system integration part of it, and then you use different cloud services, and then there is a different user. So there are so many touch points that things can go wrong. And if these people don't do the bits right or following a proper method, then things can break. And that makes having IoT security, building IoT security very, very hard. So unless the whole mindset shifts to the point that, okay, if you fundamentally from ground up follow specific things and asks for specific things, then this is solvable. This is achievable. And this is what we're trying to do. Create a framework, providing the tools for everyone on the supply chain that can test some bits on whatever they've received and then build on top of it and then pass it on to the next person. Then the next person can do the same in a secure manner. And hopefully that way this chain stay intact and you can achieve security.
I think one of the things that we need to work on together in this industry as a community is raising awareness. So having a podcast like this and getting more people front of mind, as a phrase I used earlier, because you're right, it is a chain, but you can rest assured actually that there's always going to be a weak link, but you can't not do anything. So you can't just forget about it because that would be disastrous and you can't build anything. But it is a massive challenge. The example, I've referenced this on the podcast a few years ago of the thermostat in the fish tank in this casino in Las Vegas.
2017.
Yeah. You know the date. Yeah.
Funny enough, I recently talked about that attack in one of the IoT SF event in London. Yeah, I mean, that just shows you how crazy IoT security could get and the impact of it. There is, I'm sure your audience watched Mr. Robot. That is also like a geeky on Amazon Prime about this hacker that during the day he does white hat type things. At night he becomes a kind of a black hat person. So there's the same scenario there as well, that he taps into a thermostat into a data center and bears down the data center physically by kind of manipulating the whole cooling system, and then the whole data center bursts into flames. When that episode came out, I spoke with some people here in the UK from a very famous networking company. I don't want to say the name, but they said they saw that episode and they actually thought, is this really possible? Can we really do this? And they emulated the attack, and they actually managed to physically do the attack, show that this attack is possible in real life. And that makes it very scary. And then that fish tank is a great example of maybe not to that extent, but someone just getting through connected thermostat and then finding a way to the Wi-Fi through the Wi-Fi to your local network, then the enterprise network, then getting all the data out.
When do you think this will change, Shahram? So, we had this in, 2017. You've been doing some excellent work. I mean, the ratio of PhDs in your business is probably the highest I've ever heard of any business, right? And you've got some bright minds and some really clever people doing this. I mean, is this something that is always going to be a problem, or do you think that we're going to break the back of it and actually get to grips with it in coming years? What's your view on that?
Well, so I guess the good news is we see a paradigm shift on the ground, on the manufacturing floors, through the supply chain, end users, regulations, CRA asking for these things, for instance. We're going to talk about it. So we're certainly seeing a shift and awareness, and people have started changing things and being more alert about it. A great example of it is which.com, the website that checks the quality of consumer goods, etc. Now it actually has a segment for how secure is your connected, baby camera. They actually look into the security. They said, we easily hack this device. Don't buy it. And they rate the security of connected devices in consumer electronics, etc. So you see these elements being more colorful every day. And I'm sure because of the regulations, it become, at least in Europe and hopefully, other part of the world, becomes better and better and better. And the fact that there are other regulations, industries are pushing for standards and frameworks, they're all pointing towards that direction. So hopefully things will change and will improve in the next year or two. I believe it would. The bad news is security is still being looked at as an added cost, not a value add, or how it can enable other capabilities for the end user or for the manufacturer or brand, etc. So because of that, I'm still worried that a lot of companies will find ways to get around it and just ship things that are not really secure, have those type of band-aids, false security promises on the product that could fool people, and they can still sell on a cheaper price to compete. And then those will cause havoc in our lives because they will be found on the internet.
Yeah. I think personally speaking, I think it's always going to pose an issue because as security gets better, hackers and crackers are going to get better at what they're doing. And so you've got this constant race, of good v evil. But you're right. I think the consumer mindset and the which actually is a really good example because that is the consumer's guide to actually white goods and others. In fact, I follow them on Instagram. I learned the other day that you don't have to put the washing tablet in the hopper. You can just throw it in, right? So I think it's a great it's a great publication, but also shows that people are taking this more seriously. Now, this is a really nice link, Shahram, into another topic that we're going to talk about today about regulations and acts that are coming into place that weren't previously there. So the EU Cyber Resilience Act. So some of our listeners and viewers may know about this and some don't. So would you mind doing me the honors and just explaining what this is and why we should take note?
Of course, yeah. So back in 2021, finally EU kind of have this conversation. So just a quick, like a background, pandemic made a lot of people connect a lot of devices, especially on the industrial scale, to the internet, because suddenly they realized that they need to be able to work remotely. And that meant a lot of these devices already had known vulnerabilities in them. Now they're connected to the internet, and that turned the cybercrime skyrocketing. And as a result, costed the economy billions and billions of dollars in the past couple of years. And that suddenly alerted all these governments, especially in EU and UK and US, that we're losing a lot of money because of the cybercrime on the connected devices. So back in 2021, the conversation started inside European Union and the Parliament at how can we prevent this? How can we secure connected devices or the IoT? So that's where it's coming from. So they started the process in 2022 or early 2023. They actually put out the framework of what they mean by IoT security, which is the most comprehensive technical IoT security definition at the regulation level I've seen. They are recognizing the fact that you cannot achieve IoT security without paying attention to the hardware security, and there needs to be a link between hardware security and software security, and then the cloud, etc. So they're really going or following a security by design paradigm from ground up for any connected device. But then they're categorizing the different type of connected devices, whether it's a critical one because it sits in factories and national infrastructure, etc., or is a less kind of critical one, still connected, and you need to have some levels of security. But if it gets hacked, the damage is not as important, perhaps. So it needs different layers of security, but it still requires that security by design element inside. So this is how it started. And about a week ago, we finally passed. So we overwhelmingly passed the law passed in the European Union, and now is with the states to individually pass it. So I think in a couple of months, it becomes the law in the European Union, and there is a 12 months and 18 months, depending on the type of device, to be enforced. So sometime in 2025, this will be enforced. And if you're already shipping a connected device to European Union, you need to be aware of that, because in a year or so, someone might put their finger on saying, oh, this doesn't comply with CRA, and you might be in trouble. So a little bit about the details of CRA. So first of all, it's not just about the the last person or brand company who sells the device. They are taking into account everybody who touched the device to build the device. If you provided just a component for that device, and that component plays a role that could weaken the security of the device overall, you needed to play your own role to prevent that. So you could be a software designer, you could be a component provider, you could be the company who designed the whole board, you could be a distributor who brought the device from APAC to European Union. They will go after everybody if vulnerability is found inside the device. And they are asking for some basic things. So basically, from again, security by design principle, they say each device needs to have its own unique identity that can be recognized and verified by cloud services, for instance. So you cannot just use a default password for all your devices. The device actually needs to be able to, in a passwordless way, authenticate itself to you or to a service. and that needs to be unique to that device. And then that identity needs to be stored securely at the hardware level inside each device. And then once you have those things, and this device is connected by an end user to a cloud service, and let's say vulnerability is found in the firmware or the software that runs inside the device, that is fine. But you should already have a mechanism for that device, so the owner or the user can update, or you can update and patch that vulnerability remotely and securely. And if you don't have any of those, and those are being found by regulators inside the European Union, you will be given a short period of time to quickly fix it, or then you will get big fines. We're talking about tens and 20 millions of euros, or depending on how the size of your company, could be even bigger. And the devices might be recalled from the market, etc. So very much like the GDPR, that there are like very severe fines around it, is the same kind of, they're following the same model for CRA as well.
Yeah, that's really going to help combat the weak links that we spoke about earlier, right?
Absolutely. There are a couple of areas that they really like about it, how it's being defined. Obviously, they recognize and they believe that this will not make all the devices hack-proof. That is fine. I think what they're trying to achieve is making sure all the devices has a certain level of security in them that makes them secure against the usual hacks and attacks and easily being broken, basically. But also, if something found in them, we still can patch them and prevent from them causing a big problem in European Union, etc. The other aspect is how technical they are explaining the security, the fact that they really going deep into the hardware security aspect of it and the connection to the software security aspect of it. That's also very interesting to me.
Yeah. I think what this is doing is creating a benchmark and raising the level of interest and focus on a certain level of security, right? As you say, they're not saying you have to guarantee it's hack-proof, because you couldn't guarantee that. We spoke earlier about good v evil and the balance racing all the time. It's impossible to say that, but it stops negligence, when it comes to security and when there's no security. In fact, I was having a conversation with one of your team at an IoTSF event a couple of years ago, and they were talking to me about, going to a CCTV convention and asking everyone who does the security, and no one could answer the question. No one could say who did the security, what it was, actually how it worked, etc. So I think what this does is it stops that from happening. And it stops the really bad cases. But my hope is similar to the GDPR as well. And my personal view on it is that there's a pragmatic approach to be taken. So we're looking to say to the manufacturers and the people in the chain that are showing negligence around security, that's not okay. But actually the people that are doing quite well, that may make mistakes or that aren't perfect, that we're not going to chastise those people too harsh as well. So there needs to be a balance, right?
Absolutely, yes. And I think they have done a good job. And also, again, they categorize different devices. So not all the devices are super critical and needs to have the top-notch security level, etc. Not all the devices needs to go and be certified by independent bodies. A lot of the devices, they claim 90% of consumer electronics, for instance, can be kind of go through a self-assessment by the manufacturer saying, okay, we provided this, you can't do this, you can't do that. So we followed all those regulations that you asked for. So this is certified. And then if later on they randomly check and see things, if they found you that you haven't been compliant, then yes, they'll come after you. But generally it seems that they're not trying to be very harsh about it to kind of push everyone to a very, very high standard security, but put a really good framework in place and kind of guide everybody, please follow this and try to implement as much as possible, depending on how sensitive your device is and who the end user is, basically. Yeah. And like GDPR, I'm hoping once this is happening in a couple of months and a year at most, pretty much the rest of the world follows. I mean, already there are over 20 plus type of IoT security regulations going around the world. UK, US, Europe, in Australia, Singapore. A lot of other countries are doing these things as well. But hopefully once this happens, pretty much everyone follows suit and follows the same standards. And that also helps with the headache that the manufacturers have, because they're shipping and exporting to all sort of places in the world. So it's hard to follow up with different regulations as well.
I guess also from a business point of view, this is probably quite good for business for people in your field, working in security and helping customers improve their security, because you're likely to receive, and one would imagine, a lot more requests actually for help, I would say.
Indeed. No, absolutely. I mean, anyone who worked in the security domain knows selling security in general, whatever that is not an easy task, because as you said, security always been an afterthought anyway. So generally selling security is hard, and is even harder in the IoT ecosystem because of the fragmentations and the lack of clarity of accountability for security. Who is actually in charge of security? Why the device manufacturer should pay for security if the end user actually benefits from security? There are always these conversations around who is accountable for IoT security. And this is actually one of the bits that CRA is addressing, because essentially taking everybody into account, saying whatever you've done, you had a tiny bit to play for cybersecurity aspect of this, and you should play that rightly so. But for a couple of reasons, we started since maybe 9 months ago, we started seeing a paradigm shift on the ground. Definitely CRA, and the fact that now you cannot get a CE mark if you're not being compliant with CRA from a manufacturing point of view. That is obviously pushing manufacturers to be more careful and conscious about, can I get my CE mark in the next 6 months or not? So definitely are asking for help how to be CRA compliant, which we're happy to help them. On the other hand, we started hearing more requests to help for integrating security by design into different products, because now the end user, regardless of the regulations, are security conscious. They are worried about their data. They are worried about their AI model that they are running at edge, where the IP goes, where my data set goes, and all sort of things. So there are a lot happening at the edge, that makes the user or the owner of the edge more conscious about security. And that being translated going down the line and now reaching the manufacturers. And so that's another aspect that we have already started seeing a paradigm shift on the market, and people being more security conscious and asking for security.
Yeah. I think overall this is a good thing, much like GDPR, I think businesses, when they heard this, coming into force in 2018, felt it was another challenge that they had to deal with. But actually, if you see it from a consumer point of view, you don't want your details being fragrantly spread around and so on. And actually, you've really got to look at the US and see that it's the land of the cold calls, right? People are frequently being sold things because GDPR isn't an act there. There's similar privacy acts, of course, but this ultimately is a responsibility measure, right? So I think it's a good thing. I agree.
I agree. Yeah, and the other aspect of it is, which European Union is really great at, is not just coming up with the regulation, but actually enforcement. California, I think around 2018, they came up with the very first IoT Security Act. They were the very first one that actually put something out as a regulation for IoT security. But I never heard that this has been enforced in California. Based on the act, you cannot import any connected device, even being a doll, for instance, or a toy, to California if it doesn't have infrastructure for secure update over the air. but I never heard that anyone actually went and checked and someone got fined or things like this. So didn't see any enforcement. But European Union, from GDPR, we know that they will be very serious on the enforcement side. And that's what makes it different.
Yeah, absolutely. Because with no accountability, comes no reason to do it. So I think moving on just quickly, if I can, about how actually because it's really interesting stuff. It's really, really good. But I think how actually Crypto Quantique are working towards this from the Quantique side, so from the quantum side. So it'll be interesting to dive into that a little bit, because quantum, for me, I am fascinated by quantum. The Schrodinger's cat analogy, the super state, it's just everything that we've ever learned about computing from a binary point of view, or going down to NAND and NOR gates, being on and off. It seems like you throw it out the window, actually. It's completely separate to how quantum can work and how it can interact. So the level of security that can be involved with quantum and with acts like this, from a high level point of view, what are the advantages and what are you kind of working towards with some of your customers, and how can we integrate quantum, and are we there yet? I guess is my question.
Sure. Yes, of course. From a quantum security point of view, we have been, the industry in general has been way ahead of quantum computing side of things. So quantum computers and how we want to build them and what algorithms we want to run them, that's a way more complex scenario that still is progressing, and some people are making good progress in the field using different mediums, etc., to achieve to arrive at a universal quantum computers that actually can do all sort of computation. But I believe we are still some years away from that state, despite the recent achievements and progress that the industry have made. On quantum security side, though, we have been way more advanced. So quantum key distribution been around since early noughties, since 2008, 2009 became commercialized. And now there are all sort of big companies selling quantum key distribution protocols. These are devices that create an end-to-end. So between 2 points, use a form of light to basically send bits from one end to the other end. And because of the quantum laws, if someone in the middle try to read what bit is being sent from A to B, that will disturb the system, and then the two people involved in exchanging those information through light can detect that. Hence, it's kind of unbreakable in that sense, and no one can ever eavesdrop on this model without being found out. Hence, A and B can redo the model or find other ways to exchange the secret between each other. And it relies on how quantum physics works and how quantum measurement works, for instance. So this been around and being used, but because the fact that it kind of only works ad hoc, end to end, in that sense, and it's limited by the distance between A and B, etc., from an industry point of view and application point of view, is very limited. Also, the devices are too big, so you can't really have them on a chip inside an IoT device, basically. But gives you good concept for kind of quantum security or unbreakable security, basically. Then moving from there, you see cryptography evolving into post-quantum cryptography or quantum secure cryptography, which are the usual algorithms that we knew, the mathematical models that we knew, such as elliptic curve that you mentioned. But instead of relying on hard problems that we know quantum computers can break and solve, hence break the cryptography algorithm, they are relying on other hard mathematical problems such as lattices or some others that right now we don't know if quantum computers can break them or not. So we don't know any algorithm that can run on a quantum computer and break those or solve those hard problems. So we believe, or the community believe, that there are some hard mathematical problems that will withstand the power of quantum computers. And we still can build cryptographic algorithms on top of them that could be around and keep us secure in a normal way that we do it today. Piece of software, easily commutable, exchangeable, and deployable, even while quantum computers are around. So that's one aspect of what we do. But these new algorithms, post-quantum cryptography algorithms, these are kind of heavier, chunkier algorithms to run versus elliptic curve, ACDSA, things like this, especially on resource-constrained IoT devices. So what we're doing is we're finding ways to make them more efficient for low resource devices to achieve quantum security even on those devices at that cryptography level. Then there is another aspect of quantum security which we do, and that is how can you use locally, can you use some quantum phenomena to generate the randomness that then you use for cryptography to generate keys, generate identities, and things like this. And that's where we have utilized quantum tunneling that happens on silicon today, on CMOS, to either generate randomness, just a stream of random numbers, like a quantum random number generator, or use it as a path for root of trust. And that's two silicon IP that we have that reads the very, very low current of leakages, of gate leakages that happens because of the direct quantum tunneling at the transistor level, and uses that to either create a pool of randomness that is reconstructible and that become a path, or just use it to produce a stream of random numbers to be used for cryptography or other means. And this, as when you look at it at the face of it, it just looks like a normal silicon IP that you just drop into any chip. And we already have integrated it with some semiconductor companies and chip designers in different process nodes on TSMC and Global Foundry fabs, basically. And so that's the other aspect that we do. The quantum side is interesting in that aspect because in case of the PUF, it gives you a higher level of security and reliability versus any other PUF that classically are using classical method to generate the PUF effect. So for instance, the way quantum tunneling works, side channel attacks just doesn't work on them. So they're just inherently secure against side channel attack. And about 18 months ago or so, we got that verified by an independent security lab in France. So they ran common criteria test, AAL4 plus type side channel attack test on our test chip, and they couldn't get a bit out. So we have proven these things on there. So it gives you these higher level of security just because you're playing with this kind of quantum phenomena. And on the randomness side, it just gives you better, higher entropy or reliable entropy, for which is always valuable when it comes to cryptography and generating keys and exchanging keys. Yeah.
No, I think it's a wonderful overview. Thank you for that. I have a question for you in what you've said. You know, we've been speaking about resource constrained devices
yes.
for a long time in the industry, but is any device now really resource constrained? Because a resource constrained device 20 years ago to compare to what it is today is quite different, isn't it? So what denotes a resource constrained device today?
I think from compute power point of view, even the low level MCUs today are pretty powerful. So to your point, I don't think we really have a compute power problem, but we do have, when it comes to post-quantum cryptography, we will have memory problem. So the amount of flash that is available inside MCUs or the SRAM that is available inside MCUs, etc., that is not enough if you want to run a quantum secure cryptographic algorithms on your MCU, because usually their public key or their private key could easily be like a megabyte. And that's just too much for an MCU, for instance. So these are the kind of problems. Part of it we can solve with having a PUF that can handle multiple keys, such as our QDIT PUF. So you don't actually need to store anything inside memory. You just generate them on the fly and use them, and that's it. But in some cases, yes, you need to find a way to store some of those secrets. The other side is like the size, the number of handshake that needs to be done. Again, the bandwidth that they use is too much, or then the size of the signatures are too much. So these are nuances that in a protocol, in a cryptographic algorithms, we try to improve. So it makes it better to run on even low constraint IoT device.
Got it. Thank you for that. Yeah, it's an interesting question. It's always a challenging one to answer, but yeah, I think you're right. It's a memory limitation as opposed to a compute one, because it's physically not the space to be able to put it there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, as we're coming kind of to the end of the podcast today, about the open source community and your views on working with the open source community and its effect on security in general. So, some of the greatest initiatives, in computing have come from the open source community. Look at Linux and, GNU and various initiatives over the years. What's your view on working with the open source community?
I think is a valuable asset, and when it comes to cybersecurity, definitely. So, for instance, on the tip side, on the hardware side of things, we are a member of Open Hardware Group, RISC-V Open Hardware Group, RISC-V International, GSA, the Global Semiconductor Alliance. So we definitely see a lot of value for the community come together and work on common goals together, and then open source that for the end users for various reasons. One is people see how things need to be done properly. Like, for instance, when you want to design a chip, and then you look at some of these designs, open source designs that are available, and they have taken care of memory management, secure boot, secure compute, and things like this. The least is you learn from them, or there is a source that you can trust and other people are working with, that you trust. And from a cryptography point of view, we always believe in making everything available so people can attest the security aspect of it. They can verify the security aspect of it. And if there are vulnerabilities, it's being announced openly and being fixed, versus black boxes that you don't know what's going on inside. And sadly, history showed us that a lot of the time things could go wrong massively. And then, it's too late to do anything. So definitely when it comes from security, cryptography essentially is an open source community in general, because all the algorithms that you use from a cryptography security assessment, the very first assumptions that you make is the adversary knows the algorithm. The only thing the adversary doesn't know is the secret key. Now show me how the adversary can break this. So this is basic cryptography when you design a new algorithm. And seeing this on a other variety of security communities, I think is very valuable. I think it helps educating the ecosystem, helps educating different companies, but also giving them confidence in what they need to be, what they are integrating or they're using or what they need to be doing. So we are very supportive of the open source community. There are some challenges when it comes to CRA for open source communities such as Linux and others, because CRA keeps all the component vendors accountable for security. Now, if as an end user you get your Linux kernel from an open source community and something goes wrong there, then the Linux community essentially is accountable now. And that might make the vendors to kind of avoid going and getting files and libraries from open source community, because they can't guarantee security, or there's nobody really accountable on that side. But there are some right now frictions between open source community and the whole CRA regulations that recently I heard they are trying to find a way to solve that, so people still will use the open source software and other things, even though they know that there is this regulation that they need to abide with.
We don't want to take a step back, right? So, the CRA is taking a step forward. So we actually don't want to stop the community being able to help improve security.
Indeed.
By worrying them of retribution, right?
Of course, but also at the same time, maybe this is a great opportunity for the vendors to be more active in the open source communities, to do those tasks of security aspect. Let's contribute more. So a lot of things are being done by the open source community. Let's take responsibility and help with the security aspect of it. So we can make sure that the open source is compliant with CRA, etc. So that's another angle to it. Perhaps we can even improve the open source community processes.
Yeah. I have many friends that write comments to the Linux kernel and so on. It'd be interesting to see their thoughts on this. And
absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you Google, you come up with a lot of interesting conversations. People weren't happy initially, but I think now CRA are making some changes to accommodate some of the concerns from the open source community.
I think it's the headline, though, isn't it? The headline here is that we're, ultimately, what are we doing this for? We're doing this as a good thing, and it should be perceived as a good thing. Or it should be not even perceived; it should be noted as a good thing. Good perceived and perceptions, slightly different things. Shahram, it's been wonderful having you on the IoT podcast. I've really enjoyed the conversation. I think we could have gone on for hours and hours about various topics, but I think we've given a really good overview of you, your business. Incredibly bright minds, clever people doing some really important things for everyone, right? And I think we talk about the community, but actually it's beyond that, because it's everyone that interacts with a device, everyone that uses technology in their everyday lives, which is synonymous with where we are at the moment. So as we come to the end of the podcast, we always go for a quick couple of questions, which I'm going to do now, Shahram, if that's okay. So a little bit more light-hearted. So we're coming up to stack a little bit, actually, from post-quantum security to something a bit more light-hearted. In general, what challenge would that you face would you like a technical solution for that currently isn't there in the world?
Oh, interesting. I would say kind of finding and hiring the best people. It's hard. And sadly, I don't think recruiters are helping much, to be honest. If there was a technical solution for that, that would be brilliant.
I think, do you know what? I could answer this a lot. Owning two recruitment businesses in this space, I'd say that the problem that you have with that is people are people, and people sometimes don't necessarily just want to interact with a machine and an algorithm, right? So you need the bad recruiters to make sure that the good ones, that they're good, which is unfortunate. But unfortunately, it's the way of the world, right? I think LinkedIn, tried to solve this. Their whole mission statement and manifesto was to remove the link, but unfortunately, what it has now done is it's driven the great people away. So the great people aren't on LinkedIn because they get spammed constantly.
Yes,
right? So,
tell me about it. Yes.
Yeah. So it's a difficult concept. I feel like we've opened a box of frogs here with lots of with lots of different ways to talk about it. But that would be interesting, and I think if someone could nail that, they'd be onto a good thing. But many have tried. But I think ultimately what it boils down to, in my view, and you can tell I'm quite passionate about this, I think is someone wants to talk to someone and they want their experience, their opinion. The reason why generative AI can produce such wonderful copy quite quickly, and it's getting better. I mean, sometimes it's not good. The reason why people read the opinion of Jay Rayner when he's a restaurant critic, or Jeremy Clarkson, because they like the opinion and they trust the opinion of that person. And that's something actually that technology is going to find difficult to replace, certainly when it comes to something so important like moving jobs, in my humble opinion.
No, I absolutely agree.
A gadget that you can't live without.
Probably my phone, sadly.
Same. In fact, I forgot to put mine on silent before the podcast, and I think it was going off. And it's the new iPhone. It doesn't have the button that you can just turn to silent anymore.
They keep removing things from.
Yeah, well, now they have a great idea that the button can do lots of different things. But all I really want to do is turn it off. I don't want to turn the light on or make another call. I just want to turn it off. So I was actually thinking that when it was ringing earlier, I was thinking, why isn't the button just there now? Most unexpected thing that you've learned this week? Maybe there's something from Taiwan.
Most unexpected thing that I learned this week. I learned some nuances and complexities in Chinese language. Yeah, how one word means have totally three different meanings. But the way you said is just by moving the accent either a little bit forward or a little bit backwards. It's just incredible how complex this language is. So that was unexpected for me.
How interesting. And then finally, something that you're passionate about, Shahram, outside of work.
Something I'm passionate about.
Don't say security.
No. So, but this is the thing. Since when I was a PhD student, I used to be very active and do all sort of sports and art and have passions basically. But when you start a company, and I'm sure this probably resonates with you, when you start a company, suddenly becomes your world to the point that you basically drop everything and you really push hard for the vision that you have and the mission that you want to achieve. It's hard really to think about anything outside of the world that you're in, which right now for me is IoT security, to be honest. But passion, I think my passion always been problem solving. Generally. So, and that problem could be any problem outside of my work as well, but something that is interesting to read about, learn about, and try to move the needle a little bit, or move the boundaries a little bit. So I think that's I'm passionate about. And right now is IoT security and quantum security and things like this. But outside of the world could be helping a friend or helping a group of people trying to achieve something else, or learning about a new subject, and ideating about new things.
Do you know what? I thank you for that. That was a great answer. I think I'm exactly the same as you. When people ask me that question, sometimes I remember hobbies that I had when I was a kid, actually. And then you think, well, actually, I didn't really have anything outside of work. But I think it's very poignant because the problem solving, great, engineer's mindset, clearly. But also I think sometimes we all need a bit of downtime and realize, that it's good to take a break and it's good to do something different.
Indeed. Yeah.
So, maybe if we take one thing from this podcast outside of security, maybe we just both need to refine what our passions are, right?
Yeah.
So
absolutely. No, absolutely. Believe it or not, I used to play rugby. So
okay.
I'm here now, but
same.
I'm trying to keep active here and there, but yeah. So yeah.
We've got to make the time for ourselves because no one else
Indeed.
is going to do it.
Oh, absolutely agree. Yes, absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. Yes.
Shahram, thank you for joining me on the IoT podcast. I've really enjoyed the conversation. It's been a great.
Thanks for having me.
It's been fantastic. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you. And I'll see you soon.
Thanks so much. No, it's been great. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, and have a great day.